Hello, hello, my fellow sensitive people. So, before we get started on today's remote and tarot readings, I'm going to sing you the I Got It Right song. So, a one, a two, a one, two, three, and I got it right, I got it right, I got it right. Ooh, ooh. Ooh, I got it right, I got it right, I got it right. Ooh, ooh. Okay. Only 30 seconds to get it right and to tell you what I got right. So the thing that I got right was I said about a week and a half ago, when I went into the energy on Britain, you kind of float around the energy of a particular target and out comes some energy. So about a week and a half ago, we floated over England and I said, the Queen is going to speak. Because when I went into the energy, I found myself around her energy and this desire to speak. So we got it right. The Queen spoke. She doesn't speak very often. She speaks in times of emergencies. When Princess Diana passed away, she has a Christmas address she gives, but for the most part, she doesn't usually speak. So it was kind of nice to see the Queen give a little greeting, telling us to, be good little soldiers, that sort of thing. The second thing, a couple things I was asked, and I want to just address it. The first one is I got a lot of questions about whether or not I could talk about Cash Peter's video. I didn't see the video, so I have no idea what people are talking about. I can just tell you, as somebody who remote views the last few years now, sometimes you put up a video, it doesn't work out, it's misunderstood, or you take it down, you learn. It's just part of learning to do YouTube, and we put things up, and maybe it doesn't get a good response, we take it down. What can you do? This is just for entertainment purposes, and so I think the thing is to not take any of this too seriously, and I guess that's all I have to say about it. Is like, we're all here to help each other feel better, and I can't comment on the video because I didn't see it. So I wanted to just get that out of the way. The second thing that people had asked me about is they had asked me to comment on Charles Lieber. He is a Harvard chemist, research scientist who has been arrested and charged with attempting to smuggle vials of a biological, sounds really spooky, a biological substance to China. And he was being paid $50,000 a month, and he was going to work in Wuhan. And so this is all, of course, you start thinking biological weapons, etc., etc. Particularly if you just scan this story on Charles Lieber, the scientist. If you just scan it, you're not going to really, your mind will go to all kinds of spooky places. But really, if you look at what Charles Lieber, the scientist, is being researched for, it's patent infringement. So what it appears, based on the article, I can go and take a further look into it if you like, but that people are rushing towards patents, particularly patents of genetics, so that they can create things like vaccines, etc. And if you steal somebody's patent, then that's pretty bad. So it appears that what Charles Lieber is accused of is that American scientists were being paid under the table to steal patents and scientific information to benefit the Chinese. And so it's patent theft. So if they were working on vaccines, if they were working on, in his case, he was working on nanoscience, and the goal was for China to be able to get a patent or to steal the information to be ahead of the Americans, then that's basically what we're looking at. We're not looking at biological weapons or anything like that. It's interesting when you do a remote on Wuhan and the origins of the Wuhan virus, and you read about the woman. She was a scientist that was studying COVID-19. She also studied SARS. She's since disappeared. No one knows really quite where she is. But she was studying bats in a cave in a particular village, and that was where she suspected that the COVID-19 virus was coming from. But what's interesting is that if you follow the energy, it looks like the supplier for the Wuhan market and the supplier for the Wuhan lab animals may be the same supplier. So if you have local people from a village that are putting up traps and catching bats and selling them to the market, or selling them to anybody who's willing to buy the bats, you could the problem of contamination is not necessarily the lab or even just the Wuhan market. The source of the contamination is the bats from the village caves, where the village people capture them in traps and then sell them for profit. So theoretically, those bats that were infected wound up spreading that virus wherever they went. So they spread the virus in Wuhan, they spread the virus possibly inside the lab, if the lab had test animals that they bought from those poachers, those people that were capturing those bats. It's interesting, I sat in the energy of one of the lab people from Wuhan, because they're now trying to see if there was an accidental leak of the virus that they were researching, if it was a problem with the virus coming out of the lab unintentionally. And when I meditated on that, I found myself as a female research scientist that was doing the data collection, and I heard myself say, it's not possible. It's not possible. And the reason she was saying it's not possible is because all the animals, they were very, very careful with the animals that they were researching. And she said that they euthanize the animals and they cremate them, basically. That was what I heard. It sounds pretty gruesome, but that is basically what it looked like. They had research animals. When they were done with the research animals, they don't sell it back to the market. They're supposed to euthanize the animals and cremate them in order to control for viral spread if they're doing viral research. But what the story is, where the virus comes from, if it's from the animals in the Wuhan market or the animals in the research facility, based on what I saw in the remote viewing, it really makes no difference. It has to do with the fact that all the bats were coming from a location where people were poaching and selling them. And because the bats, both bats, the ones in Wuhan's market and at the research facility, because they both came from the same origin, had the same virus. That's what it looked like to me. So I just wanted to put that out there, that is what I saw, that the origins of the cave and the supplied samples was the same. And so that is why we see the virus in both locations. All right, my remotes could change, but that is how my brain worked it out when I did the meditation. All right, so the next meditation was kind of fun. I don't usually do the royals too often, but because I was asked to take a look at Great Britain, how is Great Britain handling the corona crisis, I did go ahead and look at Britain, the Queen, etc. I also like to spend a little time floating around Harry and Meghan, but this particular time I did something which I did not expect. I found myself with William and Kate, Prince William and Kate, two people who I don't find even slightly interesting. I'm sorry, I just don't find these people interesting, but for whatever reason, I found myself in their apartment or their living quarters. And it was kind of interesting. It was a day in the life of Prince William and Kate, and what they allowed me to see. And she was saying over and over again, hand washy, hand washy, hand washy. She was teaching the children that about proper hand washing. In the remote, Prince William was sitting at a table in the kitchen, and he was writing something that was very, very important. So I believe we could be hearing Prince William speaking or taking a more public or more active role during this crisis, because he was at the kitchen table working. He was at the kitchen table working, and Kate was at the kitchen. She's very hands-on. I was very surprised about this. She washes dishes, puts them in the washer. What surprised me about the remote when I saw their life together is that they brought me into their memories together, their memories of dorm rooms and small spaces, and how they liked tiny spaces, and how when they dated, they met in college, they often would hang out in friends' flats, or they would hang out in small flats with maybe only one bedroom or a studio. They like these small spaces. They feel very cozy, and they like to do things themselves, which surprised me. Doing their own washing, doing their own cleaning. It looks like the setup for Kate and William is kind of interesting. They have an apartment within a larger area that they've closed off. It has a kitchen. Like I said, Prince William is trying the best he can to work at the kitchen table, but he's got children running around, and it looked like Kate was trying to entertain them by coming up with creative activities to keep them busy. But what I took away from that experience is just how much she liked being a mom, how much she liked being a hands-on mom, and how unpretentious they both were. That in many ways they prefer it this way, to do their own, to have their own, to be just a regular family in a small space. Even though it's driving William a little crazy, this is kind of how they prefer things: their own cooking, their own cleaning. I think she has a little bit of help. I think I saw one nanny and maybe one housekeeper, but other than that coming and going. But for the most part, she does a lot of this stuff herself. So I thought that was kind of cool. I know people get curious about them, so I saw that. All right, so in the next remote, I focused on Biden and the fact that Biden had been accused of sexually harassing somebody, sexual assault allegations that were placed against him by somebody who had been on his campaign in the 1990s. If it continues to come out, if people keep talking about Biden, if this issue keeps coming out, Biden's going to have to address it. It's interesting, when you go into a remote with Biden, I don't get denial from him that he had affairs, that he was flirtatious, that people were according to Biden in the remote, on the campaign trail, it's very common for people to have affairs, for people to flirt. People are working in close proximities, they're far from home. And he said it's very common that you'll see people having affairs on the campaign trail. He said he hasn't thought about that time in quite a while, what happened 25 years ago, whatever. But I don't see him denying it. I see him instead seeing it as something that, if he's told by one of his handlers that a girl is interested in him in the 90s and they're flirting and everybody's flirting and having little affairs, he took it like that. That seems to be what I'm getting from Biden. And I think he may have to step down. I think that if this continues to blow up, Biden may be forced to step down. If he's forced to step down, I tried to put myself in Biden's shoes, and it's interesting. I think Kamala Harris really wants to take a position in his administration, but there is a sexist aspect to him where I don't think if he did step down, he might be inclined to pick a man to take the role rather than a woman. But I see Kamala Harris around him a lot. But we may see him stepping down. All right, the last thing I did a remote on was, I get a lot of feedback on Vladimir Putin. People think that I like Vladimir Putin. I'm not supposed to have an opinion about Vladimir Putin, but people do ask me a lot about him. I think he's a complicated person, because people do ask my opinion. I think he's a complicated person. I think he's definitely compartmentalized. Getting into his head, actually, to be honest with you, is so foreign to me. It's so hard for me to understand a mind like this. But rest assured, he doesn't come across as a nice guy in the remotes. He comes across as an oligarch who justifies his behavior because in his mind, he feels he is right. He feels he is right no matter what he does because he is the law. If you really want to understand Putin, Putin is the law. He makes the laws, and so therefore he is above the law, just like Richard Nixon. If the president does it, it is not illegal. Putin often describes the people under him as kind of like dogs. The dogs, in the sense that he's very attracted to this idea of Ivan the Terrible, that the more you are feared, the more you will be loved and respected. That this is something that he actually liked about Ivan the Terrible. And he doesn't go around killing everybody. He kills or he acts in a violent manner against people who in order to send a message of terror. It's really more about the message. For example, like Trump, if you betray his loyalty, he'll take care of you. Specifically, we've talked about this in the past when we did a remote viewing on the FSB. If there's a very different way of treating somebody that betrays you who's in the FSB versus just a regular civilian who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, that was basically what I wanted to say about Putin, is that in his mind, it's always justified because in his mind, the biggest mistake that Russia ever made, he's not a fan of socialism because he feels that the natural order in Russia is to have a czar. That this is part of the way Russia has always been. It's been principalities. It's been kingdoms with a czar overseeing other areas with other oligarchs. And in his mind, he sees this as part of the natural order of Russia. If he takes the money for himself because there's an oil deal or something like that, and he wants $2 million for himself, again, he can do this because the rules don't apply to him. He's not a peasant. The job of a peasant is to fear him and to, like he's the great benevolent daddy daddy doesn't have to explain himself. And you're supposed to fear him, but also be grateful for his benevolence. There's another part of him where he will take whatever he wants and then he'll give to an orphanage or he'll be the patron of a particular charity that he believes in. This is the thing about Putin that's so complicated, perhaps to an observer. I don't think he's black and white. So I don't know why we get so much feedback on him, but we get a lot of feedback on him. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to mention about Putin. I was meditating on Putin last night, and I was trying to figure out how he felt about what happened with China and the coronavirus and how America's response to it was. And he was very matter of fact. He said, it's only a biological weapon because of America's incompetence. In plainer words, it was not intentionally released by China to have a biological weapon that was going to devastate the economy of the United States. In fact, it's devastating for China that America's economy is tanked, because if America's economy is tanked, it means we won't buy more crappy stuff from China, crappy knockoffs on Amazon, right? So what Putin was basically saying in the remote is that it was an accident, but the biological weapon has acted as, or the or the coronavirus has acted like a biological weapon because the United States has been completely incompetent in its handling of the crisis, and that incompetency is what's leading to such high mortality. The future of China, though, I think we're going to be seeing in the next G20 with the World Bank and global pressure. China will be heavily fined for the economic consequences of its actions. We've talked about this in the past. Okay, so now I was asked to look at the ship's captain. We're going to do a little bit of a tarot reading, how the ship's captain is doing, who was fired. I didn't look his name up. But there was a Navy captain who was fired for letting us know about the coronavirus. So let us take a look, my fellow sensitive people. Let us take a look. What is going to happen to him? Where we are at. Oh. Movement and a Fool card. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Let's take a look. Base of the matters would indicate that he's moving or some kind of movement. His actions, perhaps foolish or a daredevil. The Fool took a leap of faith. He came out with it. And then the Knight of Wands, he moves. He's going to be okay financially. I don't see them. He's going to be able to get his retirement. He's worried about his retirement, his pension, etc. You can see the situation with his finances, feeling trapped. They're worried about his actions in terms of responsible behavior. It was irresponsible for him to come out and do what he did. Confusion and feeling. He felt, I think he has coronavirus now. There's a feeling of confusion, being trapped, coming out of a Moon card. This is kind of a feeling like he has, his behavior was questionable, like he was Moon, he was in a crazy state, he was foolish. Yeah, he's kind of he's trying to heal. He's going to be okay. I think he's going to come out of this. You can see the health card is moving in, Hermes, and also the rejoicing. The criticism, there is a criticism about how he went about being a whistleblower about this. It was possibly he has he drinks. There might be something going on with just his behavior. His choices were considered a little off because of the Moon card, like maybe he shouldn't have said anything. He's going to be fine though. He's got good cards which would suggest that he's going to be okay financially and he's going to recover. Okay. I want to just check now and see what the future of the Democratic Party is in the coming weeks, because I know we've got a possibility of canceling the convention, and I just want to check the Democratic Party, and then I want to check to see what's going on with Biden. Grief. It feels to me like there's a lot of organizing and work to do. Stacey Abrams is definitely going to be speaking. I'm having a flash of Stacey Abrams. Our wish is granted. It looks like it might be on the East Coast this year. There's a tower moving in. Damn. They may lose whatever the conference hall was. They may have to choreograph it in a way It may be choreographed, but not. Dang. The convention may have to happen in more than one location. It's very strange. We're going to come out of this, though. You can see a Six of Swords. The wish is granted, but there's still more stress coming in for the DNC. They're going to be helped. Man, I really feel like the Republican Party is like hitting them when they're down. I feel everything's going to be okay with the DNC, but boy, talk about challenges. I just want to see Biden now. Let's check on Biden. It's going to be with Biden. I really think, I don't see him denying doing certain things. And so the question becomes, does he step down and give it to Pete or to somebody else? There's a real possibility Biden may have to step down now. I never saw him being the president. The women are coming. Information is coming out, and you can see a Three of Cups. It's a strong female. God, I was hoping that Biden was going to turn out to be a nice guy. I don't like seeing this. I don't like seeing this. Oh, see, the women's energy keeps... Every time I go forward and look at the future of the country, it's all women. Look at that. It's all women. All women. Women's power. Rejoicing, the eyes opening, female power, what crosses, Four of Cups. It's like the Mother Nature wants the women to be in charge, and the guys are like fighting it. That's the best way to describe it. Final outcome is the Death card. Confusion. I think that things are changing. This is the time of the women, and I think that the men and the establishment are kind of resisting it. But I see Stacey Abrams all over the place. It would be very interesting if he stepped down and just gave it to Stacey Abrams. I just see it as a really powerful time for women, and I can't guarantee that maybe. I could see Biden with Stacey Abrams still. This is one of the reasons why he really has to hurry up and pick his people pretty soon, just because things are so crazy right now. I was going to do it. We have 2 minutes. I just want to check and see about Donald Trump's future, and then we'll close. It's going to be with Donald Trump. Strong, and he's working on deals. He thinks that this virus is great for him. Coming into victory, very stubborn, wants to do things his way, doesn't feel like he has to negotiate with anybody. Firing a ton of people. Anybody that questions his judgment or is too much of a pain in the ass, he says he's getting rid of. Isn't that a nice guy? I know that people are moving, they're transferring. There's the virus in the 8th house. Look at that. The problem. You can't correct him. It's like goes back to what Melania was saying. You know, you can't correct him. Some of the checks, some of the money's going to start coming out at the end of the week. He's trying to create old alliances and get things up and going from the past. But there's a death and transformation of his presidency around him, and it's due to this virus. It's due to the infection. I don't know what other readers are using as their card for the virus, but I've been using Knight of Swords. Also, it's a wind injury, Wei Qi in Chinese medicine, and this is a wind card. It's a violence in the wind, disruption in wind. But you can see a death around it. It's interesting. The more stressed out, the more this accelerates, the more people Trump fires, because the more people around him start saying there's a problem, there's a problem. Anytime people say there's a problem, he gets rid of them. And that's potentially a dangerous situation we find ourselves in. All right, everybody, keep the faith. We're coming out of this. We've got some good governors that are stepping up the plate. All right, if you're trying to get in for a reading, you can reach out to me by going to tarotwithwhimsy.com, and you can schedule online, and I would love to give you a reading. All right, take care, everybody. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Peace out.